welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the small business owner. Tonight on the show on Influencers, two conversations. First up is iQuippo, and on the other side of a short break, we're in conversation with architect and design thinker Ashiesh Shah. Now, even as the e-commerce platform here in India is changing and there's more and more innovation every day, I caught up with the CEO of iQuippo, which is a very unique model. They deal entirely with construction equipment. I spoke with him to understand really how this model is perhaps evolving in India and also what it means to be the second and third generation of business families. Here's what he had to say. Thanks so much for speaking with us on Leaders of Tomorrow, Anant. We speak to young entrepreneurs all the time, so it's interesting to also speak with someone like yourself, coming from an established business family, but doing something which is different, which is something that you are doing on your own. Let's start by first talking about iQuippo. It's a one of its kind platform that enables the sale and renting of construction equipments, amongst others.
Yeah, so basically iQuippo, I would say, is a marketplace for equipments where someone can come and anything he wants related to an equipment he can get. He wants to buy an equipment, he wants to sell an equipment, he wants insurance for the equipment, he wants to finance an equipment, he wants spare parts for it, he wants insurance, everything is there. So it's a marketplace which we've built. And now what we are doing is we want to enhance it more by using blockchain and creating risk matrices which could help financiers on the platform and also do asset provenance, so that the client can map out entirely where and what he needs on an asset during the life cycle.
Okay, so you're not just construction equipment based.
Yeah, not just construction equipment, various equipment.
Okay, I want to talk about also a couple of things where the regulation is concerned for the equipment industry. First and foremost, let's talk about GST. Anyone involved in the movement of any kind of material has welcomed GST with open arms. I'm sure it's been no different for your company.
Yeah, no, I think for iQuippo, we've really changed. GST has really changed things because we've seen issues whenever construction is happening cross-border or assets are moving cross-border. Used to have sales tax, VAT issues, but GST has really improved that, and now movement of goods is much more easier. People can buy equipment or rent equipment from, say, one part of the country and get it to another part.
Okay, so the second thing that I want to talk about for the equipment industry is, of course, licensing and registration. How easy or simple is it right now? What would you like to see changing? For someone who's watching this interview, who perhaps doesn't understand how this industry works, where licensing is concerned, what do you have to say?
So I think, we've been lobbying a lot through the industry to, make changes in the licensing and registration process, because currently construction equipment is not a separate category in registration and licensing. So today, say, for example, a driver of a construction equipment can be a commercial vehicle driver because there is no separate category. So those drivers come into construction equipment and driving it the same way as they do a commercial vehicle. And also registration is not under a separate category, but under just the commercial vehicle category. So I think the government needs to do and change that, because that's why, you hear of incidents happening on roads where, construction equipment professionals, they don't know how to, manage an excavator. That's why on-site HSC issues can happen. And that's why we spend a lot of time in training our operators in how they operate the equipment, so that we don't have such issues, and also lobbying with the government.
Sure. So I'll come back to training, but apart from the safety aspect of not having separate registration and licensing norms, is that having an impact on the business when it comes to, say, valuing of equipment? Does that have an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So also what happens a lot of the times, when it's not registered properly as a construction equipment, your valuation and the asset provenance also doesn't happen properly. So that's where the realizations, if you see, for financial institutions or anyone, a seller or a buyer, is very is reduced, I would say.
Has been the banking and the restructuring norms, the new ones that have come about. Has that made it perhaps easier for businesses and companies like yourself to be able to service your customers? Because now the way that equipment is being valued when a liquidation or a bankruptcy process is on is becoming different.
Yeah, so the bankruptcy law also has really helped and changed our business for our customers, because what has happened is for them leasing has become easier, because being an operational creditor, whenever a company is in bankruptcy and the asset is being used, they will get paid. And also they using their influence in the bankruptcy proceedings have also helped them in realizations of their receivables. The other big impact I would say the IBC has had is in the valuation of equipments. So also what has happened is now a lot of people are using our services in valuing the equipment rightly.
So anything else that you'd like to see by way of clarification then from the government for your industry? We've spoken about licensing and registration. We've spoken about the benefits that GST has had. But if you were to say that you would like to perhaps see more competition in the domestic market, if the Indian marketplace for equipment needs to grow, maybe the one or two things that you would like to see, and use that to sort of maybe talk to our viewers to say that this is perhaps, what are the biggest changes the industry needs?
So I think, one thing majorly from, the customer point of view, which I would see is that people should come online and on a transparent basis dispose of equipment, because a lot of these are localized places where people sell their equipment, and it's still a very unorganized market. So if they get it organized, and the government could help in, easing out through, the digital wallets, etc., which they're doing, and also if they could on the rate side assist on this on lowering maybe the GST rates on sale of equipment, people would be more transparent in bringing their assets on a transparent basis and liquidating them rather than using an unorganized market.
Sure.
RBI could really help in getting more competition in equipment financing, and doing and making laws specific to asset financing and leasing. That would really help all people and all stakeholders in our business and industry to grow it. Because if you see, if the government has an ambitious plan of growing infrastructure, and 30% of any project cost is equipment cost.
So that's interesting. I want to talk about technology and just how much of technology you perhaps are using in your business. Everyone at this point is talking future technology, whether it's AI, whether it's blockchain, etc. How much of that are you perhaps using?
So we've used a lot of technology, and we've embraced it from a long time. One, we put IoT devices on all our equipments, and we're also asking the OEMs to share their data which they have on the asset with us, so that we can help customer gain more knowledge and get them a better value for the asset. The other thing is we are using blockchain to track and do asset provenance, and also calculate risk matrices, because this helps our financing partners to get risks on real-time basis, and therefore them to value risk on a dynamic basis. So these are the two main things we are currently using. And I future see that, in risk, tomorrow risks are handled by professionals. Tomorrow AI can also come in and take over and do our risk calculations.
Okay. How easy or difficult is it in the current environment for those trying to raise finance in your industry to be able to access those funds? Have things started easing up?
So I think there's still some challenges, because, we don't have very organized markets or developed markets, I would say, for venture capital funding, etc., how you have in other parts of the world.
My question is whether you have enough people in India at the moment who are trained perhaps to use this equipment, because a lot of big industries say they're still bringing in people, qualified engineers, say from Japan, from Europe, etc., to be able to work on the machines here, something as basic as that. Are you training people at your end? Are there enough qualified people here? What should an MSME, which perhaps can't afford to bring down engineers from across the globe every time that they need to use equipment, new equipment, and learn about it, what do they do?
So I think, the skill sets is obviously a big gap in the construction mining industry, and we've been always involved in training people and are doing that. And we always believe, in creating entrepreneurs, and that's what gives me happiness to see entrepreneurs with, one machine or two machines taking the entire livelihood. And what we've done in this journey is partnered with OEMs to, help them use their programs to also train people. But I think the government also should look at it very keenly that, this can be a really big employment generation. And you will not just generate employment as like giving them salary, but you'll actually create entrepreneurs, because people can own one machine and can run their entire livelihood on that machine. And we've seen that, in small areas of Dhanbad, etc., people owning one mining equipment, and it's running their entire family livelihood.
Okay, my last question to you, Anand. What perhaps are plans that you have on the radar? Would you, perhaps look at working with any state governments? Anything that you're looking at that you can talk about?
So currently, my focus and vision is that today the industry sells about $5 billion of equipment.
Okay, in India?
In India. And our target is that we should look at capturing almost 90% of that. So we've been getting different partners on board and stakeholders, be it OEMs, be it financiers. And our aim is first to, capture the Indian market and then move overseas.
Okay, wish you all the very best for that. Thanks for coming down to our studios tonight.
Thanks
Anand. Time for a break. Ashiesh Shah is in focus on the influencers tonight. That's our second conversation. Do stay tuned. More on what he does, that's on the other side. You're back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on the show, I'm in conversation with architect and design thinker, Ashiesh Shah. Our second, the influencer conversation tonight is with Ashiesh Shah. He's a young architect and uses design principles to approach this field. He spoke to me about how technology is changing the space, how he views what the future is like, and what being a champion for change under Niti Aayog's initiative and platform is all about. Listen in. Thanks, Ashiesh, for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. We were just chatting and I said it's not very often that we have an architect or someone from the interior design space and from the art space coming and speaking to us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here with us. I want to start by talking about just perhaps how the interior design in the architect space has been evolving in India. There's of course more disposable income now, but as more and more Indians are traveling, it's also the tastes that are changing. Maybe you can give us a sense perhaps of what has been the biggest change that you've seen over the last, 10-15 years that you've been in the business?
Well, I've been in India practicing for about 8-9 years now, and I think that what the gamble I took by coming into this country from New York and seeing potential worked and played its part. I feel like there was a big lacune for something exclusive in terms of interiors and design and art. I think we as a company, as a country, are very rich in culture, heritage and art, but we don't have access to most of it. We don't have avenues to most of it. We don't have people who can guide us towards it. And I think that is one of the main focal points that we are targeting. Okay, so I want to talk about your own journey. You said you've been in India now, practicing as an architect for the past 8 or 9 years, but perhaps just give us a background for our viewers watching this interview to say how you got started. Yeah, it's a very funny trajectory. I started off as being a dentist. I studied dentistry and then slowly moved towards architecture because I realized that was not my grain. I studied architecture in India and then moved to New York to finish my education and worked there for a bit, and soon enough decided to come back to the country because I felt like if I had to be an entrepreneur, I'd rather be in my own homeland rather than be somewhere out, because I felt there was a big market waiting, and I felt that there was something of a gap that I could fill. I also feel that Indians are very accepting to newer ideas. I think also as a country we are very ready for a change.
And what perhaps is leading some of the changes you're talking about, and the first is technology. It's changing the way every industry, every business is being done. How's it had an impact on you as an architect?
I mean, I think we're opening a brand new office thanks to technology now. We have a running office right around the corner from here. but I think we are opening a new space called an atelier, which is based on the whole idea of technology and design. We are kind of using indigenous material with international technology like 3D printing, 3D software modeling to create new product for the country.
Okay, so that's as far as the back end is concerned.
Yeah.
Technology is also impacting the way businesses are using in the front end, which is digital and social media.
Yeah.
And a large part of what you do is also
Yeah.
about building a brand and communicating that brand.
Absolutely.
How are you using that technology?
I think social media has changed everything for us as a brand, because I feel like when we started social media, it was very initial when we didn't know how to create a voice, and soon enough we started deciding that everything we put onto it should deliver a voice, deliver a statement. Okay. Today what we portray is important. I personally spend about 2 hours every day on social media, be it between Instagram, Facebook, even Pinterest, to create a bank of ideas which we can take from and start delivering our new concepts.
Okay, one would presume that it is easier as an architect to be able to be on social media, because you have beautiful homes, for instance, that you can showcase. But the flip side of it is that you can also make mistakes on social media. So have you seen architects making some very common basic mistakes?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like too much exposure is also really bad, because I think what we've decided a couple of months ago is not to put any of our projects on social media, and to give a perspective on our lives through social media. So I think projects are very easily seen on websites, or on our website, or on publications, but I think people want to see what's behind the mind. They want to know how did that happen. So we decided to show process. Eventually it looks like a plug rather than an expression.
Okay, you were speaking of technology, and a large part of technology is also the people availability, the skills availability of being able to use that technology. Do you see a ready pool of people available who understand these future technologies for your industry?
Absolutely, and I feel more so even now. I feel that every day, if from the resumes that we get, we get more people wanting to work with 3D Max and 3D softwares, and brand new softwares that they've created, rather than just draftsmen and designers. And I mean, that's a huge change, where people want to kind of specialize in one segment of technology to assist multiple industries. So they could be working with me, or they could be working with a builder, or they could be working with someone who's manufacturing a toy, but their software skills work for all our industries. So that is an interesting change to see.
Okay, that's interesting. For a small business which is watching this interview, to say that I perhaps would like to use these future technologies, but I'm not in a position to afford the kind of salaries to hire someone who will come in with that kind of experience, does it necessarily mean that you're training in-house? Does the government have any schemes that are available that you can talk to our viewers about?
I don't think with the government has any scheme, because I think the industry, I mean, architecture is separate, but interior design and product design as industry is a very new industry to India. So we don't have particular rules and regulations for that, but it's important when you hire an interior designer or an architect to know the background behind the education. I think that's the first thing that skill kind of comes from. B is, I think we also need to kind of have trained skilled labor in our industry, as a construction industry, that kind of works very easily with our trained industry, as I call a skill industry from our offices, which is the design industry. That lacuna is very large. I've been working abroad as well, but there it's very easy because the drawings get translated to the site immediately. Here there's a big gap, and there are lots of room for mistakes. So that is an industry that needs to kind of come to board with us.
Okay, so maybe architects like you, are industry bodies perhaps working together to ensure that you have this pool of talent available, which can then plug into different companies.
Yeah, so I think the best idea for that is to create a pool of craftsmen, not only labor, and also use Indian crafts that's been part of our heritage into the interior industry, which is a very rare phenomena right now, but I think that's a bigger industry that I see growing.
Okay, so you're saying that drawings may not necessarily be translating into the actual project here in India. What is the role of the government here when it comes to the architecture space?
Architectural space, yes, for interiors not so much. Architectural space, I think today, the government rules are so strict that every drawing has to go through a municipal corporation to be passed before it actually builds on site. So that way we have some kind of rules and regulations in place. But in interiors, we don't have that. It's like whatever you think you can imagine, you just go ahead with, which is where the mistakes lie, you know. So if it's not a trained interior designer, they could actually hamper structural parts of the building, which could be problematic for the entire society.
Sure. Let's look at a pan-India perspective. For anyone to have any sort of scale in India, you have to look at tier 3, tier 4, etc. How much of the architecture space, how much of your revenues maybe, or you know, how much of your future plans perhaps are looking beyond the metros? Is there a market there?
Oh, for sure. I feel there's a bigger market there waiting, because I feel like cities like tier 1 cities already have a huge demand and supply existing in place, but the tier 2, 3, 4 are the real markets. I think we did last year a collaboration with Urban Ladder, and that worked really well in tier 2, 3, 4 cities rather than the metros. And I think
why is that?
I feel like there is a growing need for them to own a piece of a bigger pie, which is based out of tier 1.
Okay. So for a viewer, for a small business that says, okay, so that's, you know, definitely an opportunity that I want to look at, how should they look at approaching those markets? What should they do to crack those markets?
I mean, I think firstly I think it's easier to crack those markets through product, you know, rather than practice. So maybe if you have a line of furniture or design, any product design, maybe lights, whatever, that can be retailed into those cities first. I think there's a bigger market there than just entering, because I don't know if they would have the budgets to kind of you know, accommodate tier 1 architects and designers. Yes, they would. I mean, there would be, but that'd be a very small market. But I think there'll be a bigger market for product, you know, where it's easier to kind of take into their homes.
Okay, so I was just going to come to that. Price points you're saying are not necessarily the same between a tier 1 and a tier 2 and a tier 3. How about price sensibilities? Anything one should keep in mind?
I think definitely sensibilities are growing. What I've seen in the past 8-10 years of my practice is what budgets used to be for a home, a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom home in a city like Mumbai or Delhi has changed at least twice over. So I think there is a growing. Also, I feel people are traveling so much. People are seeing so much of Netflix, and you know, there's so many movies that people see. So people want to live that life, and that increases the scale of the business.
Okay, as I'm winding down this interview, I want to talk about the fact that under the Niti Aayog, you're one of the champions for change. We've spoken to a few companies that have similarly been recognized by the government. What has this meant for you?
I think that it was a great recognition, and I think I worked with them on the field of soft power, and I think it's a very growing part of the world where it's not, you know, any kind of hard, everything like military, finance all comes under hard power, but things that cannot be quantified like culture, sports, all comes under soft power. And I feel India is not even in the top 30 as of now, and our aim is to bring India into the top 30 at least, because I feel the future of superpowers is going to be linked through soft power.
Wish you all the very best, Ashish.
Thank you.
Thanks
so
for coming
much.
back to our studios.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, here's how you get in touch. leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com is our email ID. On social media, tweet at me at Sunanda_J. That's my personal Twitter handle. You can also get in touch with us on LOT_ET Now, which is our official Twitter handle, or our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.